Hey guys, it's Counting my review for the latest new film from HBO, of course being Bad Education. So what Bad Education is essentially about is it centers on the true story of this public school in Long Island, and mainly centering around this superintendent named Frank Tazon, who this is a guy that is so well respected by everyone. Pretty much all students and faculty alike, they all love him. He really takes the time in, getting to know all of their names, getting to really bond with them, just really caring about what he does, and he pretty much seems like the ideal superintendent. It doesn't really seem like there's anything that off about him. That is until it is revealed that one of his colleagues has been working in this embezzlement scandal in the public school, basically for her own self-interest. When this high school student comes in that starts to notice some concerning things going on within the school, this really starts to threaten Tesson's position and really starts to make us question whether or not he is as good as he seems, and really start to unpack what eventually culminates to ending up being the largest embezzlement scandal in American public schools. Bad Education overall, I was definitely very excited for this movie. I didn't really know too much about it going in. I heard it was at like TIFF last year and it got rave reviews and things like that. But also knowing that Cory Finley had another movie coming out, I really loved his last film, Thoroughbreds, a lot. It was definitely weird and different and not for everyone, but it was a film that I really did appreciate quite a bit. And ever since that film, I've really been itching for him to do another film because I've seen great potential in him, and so I was really hoping that Bad Education could hopefully put him further on the map. I was really hoping this would be a really great follow-up from him, and thankfully, that's exactly the case. Bad Education is absolutely one of the best films of the year so far. It's incredibly riveting, and definitely a film that I think is going to make you question a lot more things that you might not have before, but we're just getting to right now. So I will say right now, one of the best things about this movie for sure is absolutely the cast here. Everyone is so stellar. Everyone is doing an excellent job. But this movie is absolutely nothing without the incredibly commanding and just absolutely impressive performance from Hugh Jackman in this movie, who, look, we've seen him act really well before. He's given some amazing performances in many films, but this is definitely one of his best performances for sure, because you look at a guy like Frank Tasson in the beginning of this movie, and he seems pretty much perfect. He's someone that really does care about his job. He goes as far as to, run into people in, bars and things like that, old students, and still remembers things about them. This is a guy that is just really on top of things. He really cares about the people that he's working for and the people that he's assisting. But as the film goes on, you really, and because Jackman is so likable, he does a really good job of winning you over. But as the film goes on, he does a really good job of just showing how complex of a character this really is. This film is very much a character study in that way, and Jackman does a really great job, I think, of portraying this character from all angles, just really showing just how complex he really was. He was not as perfect he's not as perfect as he initially seems, and as the film goes on, I think Jackman really gets to showcase that, especially in one scene where he just really lets loose and gives one of his best and really gives one of the most impressive performances that I've ever seen from him. I just really love what he did in this movie, especially in the back half of this film. He just absolutely goes for it, really unpacking the deeper layers of this character, and I just really love what he did. He really explores every facet of who this guy really is, the things that he might have concealed and things like that. I just thought he did such an incredible job, and absolutely is one of the best parts of this entire movie. And I think the film's worth watching alone just to see his absolutely masterful work here. He was on fire in this movie. Same goes with Allison Janney, who, despite her limited screen time, really not in this movie as much as you might think she is, still I think does a really great job as this character, Pam Gluckin, who almost works as, at first, a foil to Tasson's character, but as the film goes on, you really do start to see how similar these two really are, and I think Janney does a really good job with that. This is a character that could come across as very hateful and very cartoony, but Janney does a really good job, I think, of really exploring why this character would do these very questionable things, why she would do these, very illegal things that she's involved in. And I think overall, she just did a really great job in this film. I was very impressed by her. The rest of the cast also does a excellent job. Geraldine Viswanathan is really impressing me lately, and I really loved what she ended up doing here because she kind of serves as the audience in this film, where on one hand, she doesn't really know if she wants to really release this story. She feels like these people are really good at what they do, and she sees that, the care that they have for their students. But on the other hand, you can see that she understands that there's a lot of things going on in the school that are not right, and there's a lot of things that probably should be rightfully called out for. And so you can see that she's deeply conflicted in this movie, and Viswanathan just does a really good job with portraying that here. You really kind of feel like her character here, and I just thought she did a really great job. Alex Wolff, I thought, was also really good here as someone that works with her. At her job and things like that. I thought he did a really great job. Kayli Carter is really good as Allison Janney's daughter. I thought she was really, really spectacular here. Annaleigh Ashford, I thought, was also really great. I really like what she ended up doing in this movie. Rafael Casal was really good. Romano as well. Oh my god, it's so great to see him just being consistently great. I'm not used to seeing that, and between this and Paddleton and The Irishman, he is just killing it right now, and he's so good in this movie. He basically runs the entire board, so to speak, and he pretty much is someone that is basically someone that really supports Jackman's character. He does everything he can to try to put him in the right, direction, always is praising him and things like that, and I just thought he did a really great job. The entire cast here really is fantastic. No one really misses a beat, and that's definitely one of the best things about this entire movie. But now let's get to the directing and the writing here, because that's another thing that really did work for me about this film. Cory Finley's directing, I thought, was even more impressive this time around, because with Thoroughbreds, yes, he definitely had a very specific style for that film, but what he does in Bad Education is he shows that he can still use that same sort of dry style with a film that isn't, but not try to, make it an overabundance of that. The dry comedy is still very much there. There is actually some very dark humor in this movie. It's brief, it's not nearly as frequent as it was in Thoroughbreds, but the movie can be very funny at points, and that's something I did appreciate about Finley. But I also like just how dark he's willing to get with this film, how he dives into, what's really going on. The mood that he creates, I think, is really well done. The film starts off in an almost uplifting way. You're really into what's going on. You really find yourself getting to like all of these characters, but as the film goes on, it gets significantly darker, and I just thought that Finley did a really great job of walking the line between those two things, and if anything, I think he's shown how he's kind of improved since Bad Education. Because I know some people said that since Thoroughbreds, and I know some people said that it almost felt like a stage play of sorts, and he definitely shows that he is very much a movie director, and I just really want to see him continue to do more films, because I think he's doing a really great job at, the two films that he's done, and I just really love everything that he's been doing with his career, and it definitely no different here. I thought he did a really good job directing this. However, it's the writing here that really sticks out to me here, and I think it's mainly because the writer of this film, Mike Makowsky, is someone that went to this school around this time. The movie takes place in 2002 and things like that, and Makowsky was, I believe, in middle school, so he was right at the perfect age to really witness all this go down, because we mainly do focus on a middle school in this movie, and I thought that his writing here was just so authentic in the way that he portrays all of these characters, because like I said, this movie is very much a character study, but not necessarily in the way you think it is. You would think it'd be one of those movies where Hugh Jackman starts off as this really nice guy, but then as the film goes on, he almost becomes like a different person, and while that is the case, the nice guy sort of, demeanor that he has and the care that he has for the students, I don't think that necessarily goes away. I think what the film is really trying to do is show that this guy is not as, he's not just one thing. Yes, he's someone that really deeply cares about his students, but he's also made some decisions that are pretty illegal. He's made some decisions that are really not that great, and he's done some things that are definitely are going to get him in hot water at some point. And so I like that they showed that he's not perfect in that way. He definitely is quite rough around the edges at points, and I think that's something that the film does a really good job in portraying. Every single character in this movie, nobody's really represented as bad or good. Even like I said, say Allison Janney's character, for example, is not portrayed as such. You understand why she's doing the things that she's doing. You get the sense that she really cares about her family and she wants to provide for them, and I think they did a really good job with that. Or for, say, our main character, who, he comes across a certain way, but there is a side to him, there is a part of him that he kind of hides from, when he's not around in school, when he's not the superintendent. There's a part of himself that he very much hides from everyone. And when it's eventually revealed, you can understand why they have the reaction that they do. And so I think they did a really good, I think Makowsky did a really good job with covering this subject from all angles. And that's something I really did appreciate. And especially, like I said, for Geraldine Viswanathan's character, someone that's just really conflicted in this movie, because she sees that these are not necessarily bad people. They've done things because they want their school to be the best that it can possibly be. They want that social capital. They want that social recognition. They want to be the most, they want to be viewed as like the best school out there, which they very much are. But you start to realize that it has not necessarily been a fair ride in getting there. They haven't exactly done it in a way that they've necessarily earned it. They've kind of cheated their way through doing so. And I thought that was definitely very interesting. But the deeper social commentary as well is something else that I very much appreciate in this film. There's a great scene in this movie where Viswanathan's character is talking about how the school has used all this money to add all of these things into the school, yet they ignore things such as like a crack in the ceiling. But they have all of this money, and it's like, why aren't they giving this money to the things that need it? Why are they focusing on so many trivial things? And I kind of thought about my high school, because I remember that they would implement all of this, like, technology and things like that, get these new like 4K TVs and Rokus and things like that, but they could have spent that money on air conditioning and things like that, and things that we actually needed to be safe, so we felt more comfortable in the school. But instead, they spent it on, just electronic devices, because they wanted to be, they wanted to have the best technology possible and things like that. And so, again, it's different from what they're going through, obviously, but it did kind of make me think that, yeah, that is something that schools do a lot. They like to show off. They like to look good. They don't necessarily do what's best for everyone. And so I like that the film kind of does call out school districts for doing things like that, for not always doing what's in the student's best interest. Because you look at someone like Hugh Jackman, who very much is doing that, but not all of the school is also doing that. There are some things that he has very much just kind of overlooked that he shouldn't have. And so I really like what they ended up doing there, for sure. I think that's very interesting. But the film also talks about why someone would do something like this. There is a brilliant scene with Hugh Jackman where he just wails on someone. He just really gives it to this one character, and just really tries to enforce this point of why he did what he did. And it actually does make a lot of sense. Like, obviously you don't agree with what he did. I'm not at all condoning what these characters do in the movie. It's very illegal and wrong, and you should not at all try to emulate what they did here. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I am saying, though, is that it's a bit more complex than just, oh, they're pieces of shit for what they did. Like, no, there are legitimate reasons for why they did what they did, and I think the film does a really good job at handling that, but also handling how much they care about all of their students, and how that can actually be like a weakness for them. You kind of look at that teacher that maybe you thought wasn't as nice as they came across, and you kind of think, what's really going on behind closed doors? Were they the way that they seemed they were going to? I mean, I can think about tons of teachers that I've touted and praised and looked up to and thought, I've looked at them as an inspiration. I've looked at them as a point of reference. But this movie kind of makes you think, what was really going on behind closed doors? What was really happening at that point? Are they as well off? Are they as good natured as they really seem? And so I like that this film really poses those kinds of questions. I think that's something this film does a really great job with overall, and I think that's something that a lot of people are going to find very compelling. It also is just one of those films that really makes you think about what is that line that the school is eventually going to cross. I mean, you see this guy and he's just so loved by everyone. He's also just so good at what he does. And so you can see that, say, like Ray Romano's character, he's very patient with him. He will let him get away with things that most people probably wouldn't. And again, it's mainly because of just how well loved he is. They don't really care that much about what he's doing, even though it is very inherently illegal, and it makes a lot of sense why this school's reputation is pretty much tarnished forever. And you really question, like, why didn't they just take action immediately? Why couldn't they have just done that? And you kind of wonder, like, are there other schools like this where things have happened and those events just haven't really been uncovered? If it wasn't for Geraldine Viswanathan's character and things like that, would these events really come to light? Would people care about it as much? It really kind of makes you think about that. And so I think that's another question that this film poses very well. And that's something else that I really did enjoy about this movie, is how it really gets into the nitty gritty of it all in that way. And like I said, I think the film does a really good job with, again, portraying Tassan at first. You get the sense that he really cares about his students. There's a scene, and even some of the parents, like there's a scene very early on where he's talking with Allison Janney and literally just staying up late at night to try to remember all of the parents' names, remember all the faculty's names. He really makes a point at doing that. There are some rendezvous that the staff members will cancel because they're not feeling it, but he still goes because at the end of the day, he cares about these people. He wants to see them succeed. He wants to see them do well. He really wants to push them as much as he possibly can. And so I think the film does a really good job when the other shoe starts to drop and we start to realize that there's a lot more to him than meets the eye. He's not always doing things that are necessarily in everyone's best interest. He's not always doing things in a positive light. He has actually done some very shady things before. He has crossed some lines. And so I think they do a really good job of just showing the complexity of this character. And it's definitely one of the best things about this movie for sure. And it's because of the great character work they do with specifically Frank Tassan's character. When things really start to go south for him, it's honestly really devastating to watch. There was a lot of scenes towards the end that I was like, wow, I actually feel bad for him. Like, it's not even one of those things where it's like, should I feel bad for him? It's like, no, I really do feel bad for him because, like, while I understand what he did was wrong, you also really feel bad about what he's starting to lose, what's actually happening to him. It's really kind of hard to watch at points just because of, where he is at the beginning of the movie versus where he is towards the end. And I think the film did a really good job in not trying to sugarcoat that at all. And so, like I said, the screenplay here is really great. There's so many things this film covers, I think, really well. The cinematography here is also fantastic. If this is one of those films that, yes, it is on HBO, but this is not a TV movie. Make no mistake. This is absolutely a film that probably would have gone to theaters, not just in the midst of the coronavirus, but just if HBO had not picked it up, this would have easily come to theaters. And so don't try to let that dissuade you from watching the movie. It's very cinematic. There's some really great shots throughout this movie, especially one towards the end that I thought was honestly pretty stunning, and I really love what they ended up doing with it, and I feel like it says a lot about what the movie's really trying to say, and that's something that I very much appreciate. So I thought the cinematography was great here. The score as well is amazing in this movie. Michael Abels, man, I mean, this is the guy that's done both of Jordan Peele's movies, and so I wouldn't expect him to score this, but the second I heard it, it sounded very familiar, and so I looked and I was like, oh my god, it's Michael Abels, that Michael Abels, and it is as epic and almost, it's as epic and, like, very orchestra-driven movie-driven as you're expecting it to be. It's a really great score to this movie that just really gets you further into the mood, really makes the film a lot more depressing than it's coming, then it really does a great job, I think, of, enhancing that tone, enhancing the almost depressing feel that the film eventually does go into. And I thought that was something that was really well done for sure. I really love the score that Abels did here. Definitely one of my favorites of the year so far. And the editing, I think this film was very well paced. I can understand if some people are annoyed by like the first, I would say, like 20 or so minutes of this movie, because it does take a little while to get into the stuff you really want them to get into. But for me, I really appreciated those first 20 minutes because I thought they did a really good job of really getting you to know all of these characters, really getting you to understand why they're going to make the decisions that they do. And so I wasn't at all bothered by that. I thought they did a really good job with that overall, and I don't really have any problems on that front. So again, there's a lot to really love about this movie. There's so much that it does well. So are there some things that it doesn't do as well? Well, yeah, I do have a couple flaws with this movie here and there. I would say the most notable one, and the one I think a lot of people are going to agree with, is as much as I do enjoy Geraldine Viswanathan's character, there's a subplot involving her father in this movie. And while I do think it is definitely effective, I felt overall it was pretty underwritten. I wish we could have gotten a little bit more into their relationship, get more into why she's so conflicted about everything, how he ties into it. I thought they did a good job with it. I just wish there was a little bit more there overall, and I think they could have done a better job with that. Also, Allison Janney's character, as much as I do really like her in this movie, she kind of disappears, I would say, pretty much after her whole scandal goes down. She kind of disappears after that. She comes back in like one scene, but I wish we just cut to her every so often. I think it would have been that much more effective to really dissect both of them. The film is very much trying to dissect Hugh Jackman's character, but I feel like the film was also trying to really reinforce the idea that these two are actually very similar. There's a lot of similar ideals that they share. There's a lot of similar things that they're doing, and I think the film might have actually benefited if they did that. And there are some characters that do feel a little bit shortchanged here and there. But other than that, the things that this movie does well, it does really fucking well. It has so many incredible performances, especially from Hugh Jackman, who I really do feel is Oscar-worthy in this movie. I know it's early to talk about that, but I really do feel he gives an Oscar-worthy performance here, and I hope he gets the recognition that he does deserve for sure, because I feel like it's definitely deserved. It has a really well-written screenplay that really covers the situation from all angles. It has so much to say about social recognition, about the certain things that schools may partake in, the complexities of some of these characters. If faculty members care as much as they think they do, things like that. It does a really great job of presenting our lead character and just how complex he really is. It has an amazing score. There's so much that this movie does incredibly well. It's overall one of the most riveting and I think one of the most effective dramas that I have seen all year for sure. Bad Education is absolutely one of the best movies of the year so far, and I'm definitely going to give it overall an A-. But over, guys, in my review of Bad Education, the most you guys saw this movie, all left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.